I am standing on the wide wooden porch of our family farmhouse, looking out over the 800-acre estate that has been in the Miller name for 4 generations. The golden sun is dipping below the horizon, casting long, dramatic shadows across the rolling hills and thick forests of the valley. To anyone else, this is just beautiful scenery, but to me, it is a place of deep history and even deeper secrets. My parents, Arthur and Martha Miller, are sitting in their rocking chairs behind me, whispering to my older sister, Sarah. They think I can't hear them, but the evening air carries their voices perfectly. They are discussing the future of the land, specifically how I am not part of it. Sarah is nodding, her face set in that responsible expression she has worn since we were kids. She's the one who stayed home, the one who managed the books, and the one they trust with the legacy. I am just the younger brother who went off to the city to study geology and waste time with rocks. They see me as a wanderer, someone who doesn't understand the value of the dirt beneath our boots. They have no idea that I understand its value better than anyone else on this planet. The tension at dinner that night is thick enough to cut with a steak knife. We are sitting around the heavy oak table that has hosted a century of Miller family meals. My father clears his throat, a sound like gravel grinding together, and lays his large, calloused hands flat on the table. He looks at Sarah with pride and then shifts a weary, disappointed gaze toward me. "We've made a decision about the estate, Leo," he says, his voice firm and final. "When we pass, the entire 800 acres goes to Sarah. She's shown the dedication and responsibility needed to keep this place running. You've always had your head in the clouds or in a textbook." My mother nods in agreement, reaching over to pat Sarah's hand. Sarah doesn't look at me, she just stares at her plate with a small, smug smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She has won the prize she's been chasing for years. They expect me to argue, to beg, or to storm out in a fit of rage. Instead, I just take a slow sip of my water and nod quietly. I don't tell them that I've spent the last 3 years quietly buying up the mineral rights to every single inch of this valley. Growing up, the dynamic was always the same. Sarah was the golden child and I was the experiment. She was organized, loud, and constantly seeking my parents' approval by doing exactly what was expected. I was the one who spent my afternoons in the creek beds, collecting strange stones and drawing maps of the rock formations in the hills. My father used to laugh at my rock collection, calling it a hobby for a boy who doesn't want to get his hands dirty in the real world. To him, the real world was cattle and corn. He didn't realize that the dirt he plowed was just a thin skin over a massive fortune. Sarah leaned into his bias, often pointing out when I forgot to close a gate because I was too busy looking at a quartz vein in a cliffside. She built her brand on being the reliable one, the daughter who would preserve the Miller heritage. I let her have that spotlight. While she was learning how to balance a ledger for a struggling farm, I was learning how to read the language of the earth. I discovered early on that I didn't need their applause, I just needed the data. It was 5 years ago, during my senior year of college, that I came home for a weekend and found a strange group of men surveying the back ridge of our property. They claimed to be looking for water table levels, but I recognized the equipment they were using. It was for deep crust seismic testing. I didn't say anything to my father, knowing he would just tell me to mind my business. Instead, I went back to the university labs and pulled the geological surveys for our specific county. What I found was staggering. Our 800 acres sat directly on top of one of the richest rare earth mineral deposits in North America. These weren't just common rocks, they were elements essential for the next 100 years of technology. The surveyors were scouts for a major mining conglomerate. I realized then that if I didn't act, some massive corporation would eventually trick my father into selling the rights for pennies. Or worse, Sarah would take over and lose the land to debt, unaware of the treasure buried beneath the grass. I had to become a ghost in the system to protect my future. The plan required precision and total secrecy. I knew that in our state, mineral rights could be severed from the surface rights, the dirt, and the legacy my parents loved so much. I started small, using the money from a modest inheritance my grandfather left me and the savings from my part-time jobs. I created a private holding company called Terra Nova Solutions. I didn't use the Miller name anywhere on the paperwork. Through a series of quiet auctions and private sales from neighboring properties that were failing, I began to piece together the mineral rights of the entire valley. Because the farm was struggling and the area was seen as just farmland, the rights were incredibly cheap. Most people thought they were selling worthless air under the ground. By the time I was 26, I had successfully secured the rights to the Miller estate and the 4 surrounding properties. On the surface, I was still the unreliable son who lived in a small apartment and worked as a junior consultant. Beneath the surface, I was the legal owner of a multi-billion-dollar geological jackpot. 3 weeks after the dinner where they told me I was disinherited, the reality of the farm's struggle becomes impossible to ignore. I am sitting in the living room when I see a man in a sharp suit walking up the driveway. It is Marcus Thorne, a representative from Global Crest Mining. He's the same man I've been tracking for years. He knocks on the door and my father invites him in, thinking he's there to discuss a cattle lease. Thorne sits on the sofa, looking out of place in his expensive suit against our faded wallpaper. Mr. Miller, Thorne begins, his voice smooth and rehearsed. My company is interested in the geological potential of your land. We'd like to offer you a very generous sum for the rights to explore what's beneath your soil. My father looks intrigued, his eyes lighting up at the mention of money. Sarah leans in, already calculating how this could save the estate. How much are we talking about? She asks. Thorne names a figure that makes my mother gasp. $2 million. To them, it's a fortune. To me, it's an insult. I sit in the corner, hidden in the shadows, watching them prepare to sell their soul to a shark. My father looks at me, his expression almost pitying. You see, Leo, this is why we trust Sarah. She knows this is the break we've been waiting for. He turns back to Thorne. We're interested, very interested. Sarah will handle the paperwork since she's the future owner. Thorne smiles, a predatory look that makes my skin crawl. He pulls out a thick contract and slides it across the coffee table. It's a standard agreement, Thorne says, just a formal lease for the mineral rights. I can see Sarah reaching for the pen, her hand trembling with excitement. This is her moment of ultimate responsibility, the moment she saves the family. I clear my throat, and the sound is sharp in the quiet room. I wouldn't sign that if I were you, Sarah, I say calmly. Everyone turns to look at me as if I've just spoken in tongues. My father's face reddens. Leo, stay out of this. You don't know anything about business or this land. This is a $2 million deal. Don't you dare ruin this for your sister. I stand up slowly, feeling the weight of 5 years of secrets finally ready to be lifted. I'm not trying to ruin anything, Dad, I say, walking toward the table. I'm trying to tell you that you're about to sign a contract for something you don't even own. Thorne's smile falters, his eyes narrowing as he looks at me. Sarah scoffs, rolling her eyes. Leo, stop being dramatic. The Miller family has owned this land for over 100 years. Of course we own it. I pull a small blue folder from my bag and lay it on top of Thorne's contract. You own the surface, Sarah. You own the grass, the trees, and the house. But the mineral rights were severed and sold 3 years ago during that tax assessment error the county made. My father stands up, his voice booming. Sold to who? I never signed anything. I open the folder and point to the deed of transfer. You didn't have to sign, Dad. They were sold at a public mineral auction because the previous owner, the one who owned the land before great-grandpa, never properly reunited the rights with the surface title. Terra Nova Solutions bought them legally. Thorne's face goes pale. He knows that name. He's been trying to find out who owns Terra Nova for months. The silence in the room is deafening. Sarah picks up the folder, her eyes darting across the legal jargon. Terra Nova Solutions, she whispers. Who are they? I look directly at Thorne, who is now sweating despite the cool evening breeze coming through the window. I am Terra Nova Solutions, I say firmly. My mother drops her teacup, the porcelain shattering on the hardwood floor. My father just stares at me, his mouth hanging open in total shock. Thorne stands up, his professional mask completely gone. You're the one who's been blocking our acquisitions in the valley. You're the one who outbid us on the Reynolds property? I nod. I am, and I know exactly what's under this dirt, Mr. Thorne. It's not worth $2 million. It's worth closer to $800 million in rare earth lithium and cobalt. Your offer wasn't a deal, it was a robbery. Thorne looks like he wants to scream, but instead he just snaps his briefcase shut. He realizes the unreliable son just outplayed a billion-dollar company on his own front porch. He walks out without another word, leaving a trail of stunned silence behind him. Sarah is the first to find her voice, and it's high and shrill. You bought the rights to our land behind our backs. How could you be so deceptive, Leo? This is our heritage. She looks at my parents, trying to rally them to her side. He's a traitor. He's trying to steal the farm from us. My father's shock is turning into a slow, burning anger. He points a finger at me, his hand shaking. You used your grandfather's money to undermine your own family. You let us sit here and struggle while you sat on a fortune. I don't flinch. I've prepared for this reaction. I didn't undermine you, Dad. I protected you. If Global Crest had bought those rights, they would have used eminent domain to tear this house down and turn the whole valley into an open pit mine. They would have paid you $2 million and walked away with billions, leaving you with a wasteland. Because I own the rights, I get to decide if anyone ever digs a single hole. And I decided a long time ago that as long as you and Mom are alive, this land stays exactly as it is. My mother is crying now, but they aren't angry tears, they are tears of confusion. But Leo, why didn't you just tell us? We've been so worried about the taxes and the debt. I look at her with a soft expression. Because you didn't trust me, Mom. Every time I tried to talk about geology or the potential of the land, you told me to be more like Sarah. You told me my interests were a waste of time. If I had told you about the minerals, you would have let Sarah manage the deal and she would have signed it over to the first person who offered a check. I had to do it this way to ensure the Miller name actually stays on this land. Sarah is packing now, her responsible facade completely cracked. So what now? You're the boss? You're just going to sit there and watch us work while you're a billionaire on paper? I shake my head. No, Sarah, I'm going to do what you never could. I'm going to actually save the estate, but I'm doing it on my terms with a legal structure that protects the family, not just your ego. That night the house feels different. The 800 acres outside aren't just a burden anymore, they are a fortress. I stay up late in my old bedroom, listening to the crickets and the wind in the trees. I know my parents are talking downstairs, trying to reconcile the son they thought they knew with the man who just saved them from financial ruin. I don't feel like a winner exactly. I feel a strange sense of relief mixed with a lingering sadness. I spent years being the failure just so I could be the savior in the end. It was a lonely path. I think about the mineral rights and the responsibility that comes with them. I have the power to change this entire county, to bring in thousands of jobs, or to keep it a secret forever. My goal was never the money, it was the choice. For the first time in my life, a miller has the power to say no to the world. I realize that being responsible isn't about following rules or staying home. It's about seeing the truth when everyone else is looking at the surface. The next morning, I find my father sitting on the porch, staring out at the valley. He looks older than he did yesterday, the weight of the revelation still settling on his shoulders. He doesn't look angry anymore, just tired. I sit down in the chair next to him and we stay silent for a long time. "I was wrong about you, Leo," he says finally, his voice barely a whisper. "I saw a boy who didn't want a farm and I thought that meant you didn't care. I didn't see that you were looking at the world in a way I couldn't understand." He turns to look at me, his eyes searching mine. "Are you going to mine it? Are you going to tear all this down?" I shake my head. "Not while you're here, Dad. We're going to set up a trust. We'll use a small portion of the rights as collateral to pay off every cent of the farm's debt and set up a fund for you and Mom to live comfortably. We'll keep the surface as a working farm for as long as you want to work it, but the minerals stay in the ground until we can find a way to extract them that doesn't kill the land." Sarah comes out a few minutes later, her eyes red and puffy. She looks at me with a mixture of fear and resentment. She knows the power dynamic has shifted forever. She's no longer the heir to a fortune, she is the sister of a man who owns it all. "I'm sorry I called you a failure," she says, though the words sound forced, like they are sticking in her throat. I nod, accepting the olive branch for what it is. "It's okay, Sarah, you did what you thought was best for the farm. You just didn't have all the information." I stand up and stretch, looking out at the 800 acres that I now legally control from the bedrock to the sky. "I've already contacted a lawyer to set up the Miller Family Trust. You'll be a co-trustee, Sarah. Your organizational skills are actually going to be useful now. We have a lot of work to do to protect this place from people like Thorne." Her face brightens slightly at the mention of a job to do. She needs to feel useful, and I am happy to give her a role that actually matters. The news of the mineral miracle doesn't take long to spread through the small town. Within a week, the local paper is calling me for interviews, and neighbors are stopping by with pies and congratulations. It's a surreal experience. People who used to look past me in the grocery store are now nodding and smiling. I stay away from the noise, focusing on the legal paperwork. I realize that wealth isn't just about bank accounts, it's about the shift in how people perceive your existence. I find it ironic that I am the same person I was a month ago, with the same knowledge and the same heart, but now the world sees me as a genius instead of a drifter. My parents are struggling with the attention too. They've always been private people, and now they are the center of a geological gold rush. I make sure to keep the security tight, hiring a firm to patrol the perimeter. Thorne and Global Crest won't be the only ones trying to find a way into this valley. I have to be the gatekeeper for the Miller legacy. A month later, I'm sitting in a high-rise office in the city, meeting with a team of environmental engineers. I'm wearing a suit that fits me perfectly, a far cry from my old muddy boots and flannel shirts. We are discussing in-situ leaching, a method of mineral extraction that uses wells instead of open pits, preserving the surface of the land. It's expensive and complicated, but it's the only way I'll allow any mining to happen. The lead engineer looks at me with respect. "Most owners just want the quickest path to the cash, Mr. Miller. You're asking us to do the impossible." I smile, leaning back in the leather chair. "I have the time and the resources. My family lives on that surface. I won't trade their home for a faster paycheck." He nods, realizing that I am not a typical mineral owner. I am a geologist who happens to own the treasure. As I walk out of the office, I feel a sense of purpose I've never felt before. I am using my useless education to pioneer a new way of interacting with the earth. I'm not just a miller anymore, I'm a leader. When I return to the farm that weekend, the atmosphere is noticeably lighter. The thank you fund I set up through the trust has already started paying off the local community's debts too. We funded a new school library and a local clinic. My mother is busy with her community garden, no longer worrying about the price of seeds or the cost of water. My father is still farming, but he's doing it for the love of the land, not the desperation of the debt. Sarah is in her element, managing the trust's administrative tasks with a ferocity that makes me laugh. She's finally found a big job that matches her ambition. She still tries to boss me around sometimes, but now it feels like a sisterly habit rather than a power play. We are a family again, though the roles have been rewritten by the reality of the mineral rights. I spend my afternoons walking the hills, still looking at the rocks, but now I do it with the peace of a man who knows he has secured his world. One afternoon, I find an old map in the attic, drawn by my great-grandfather. It shows the original boundaries of the Miller estate, along with notes about where he found bright stones in the creek. I realized that he knew too. He didn't have the technology or the education to prove it, but he felt the energy of the land. He left a note at the bottom of the map: keep the land and the land will keep you. I realized that I am just the one who finally figured out how to listen to his advice. I take the map downstairs and show it to my father. He looks at it for a long time, a tear tracing a path through the wrinkles on his face. He would be proud of you, Leo, he says. It's the highest praise I could ever receive. I realized that my unreliability was actually a deep ancestral loyalty that I didn't even know I had. I wasn't running away from the farm, I was digging deeper into it than anyone else ever dared. The Founders Gala for the new county hospital is my first official public appearance as the head of Terra Nova Solutions. I invite my whole family. My parents look uncomfortable in their formal wear, but they carry themselves with a new dignity. Sarah is glowing, finally in the elite circle she always dreamed of, but this time she's there because of her own work with the trust. As the announcer introduces me as the keynote speaker, I look out at the crowd. I see Thorne sitting at a table in the back looking sour. I see the neighbors who used to doubt me. I take the stage and look directly at my parents. This land was never just about what we could grow on it, I say into the microphone. It was about the values we grew in ourselves. My parents taught me to respect the earth, and I've spent my life learning how to protect it. The applause is thunderous, but the only sound I care about is my father's loud, proud whistle from the front row. After the gala, I stand on the balcony of the venue looking out at the city lights. Sarah comes out and stands next to me. She's quiet for a moment, then she sighs. I really was a jerk to you, wasn't I? She asks, looking out at the horizon. I shrug. We were both just playing the roles we thought we had to play, Sarah. You wanted to be the hero and I wanted to be the ghost. In the end, we both got what we wanted. She laughs, a genuine, warm sound. I still can't believe you own the mineral rights. It's like something out of a movie. I smile. Reality is often stranger than movies, especially when you're looking at it through a geological lens. We stand there in the cool night air. Finally, on equal footing. I realized that the 800-acre estate wasn't just a piece of land, it was the crucible that forged us into the adults we were meant to be. I am the owner of the mineral rights, but I am also just Leo, the boy who liked rocks. As the months turn into years, the Miller estate becomes a model for sustainable development. We win awards for our environmental protection and our community support. The responsible sister and the failure brother have become a legendary team in the state. My parents eventually retire fully, spending their days traveling the world, knowing their legacy is safer than it ever was in the hands of banks or mining giants. I continue to lead Terra Nova, expanding our reach to help other family farms protect their rights from corporate predators. I've realized that my story isn't just about my family, it's about the power of knowledge and the importance of looking beneath the surface. I still live in a modest house on the edge of the estate, preferring the quiet of the hills to the noise of the city. I am a billionaire on paper, but I am a rich man in my soul because I stayed true to what I knew was right. One morning I'm walking through the back ridge, the same place where I first saw the surveyors years ago. The air is crisp and the ground is covered in a light frost. I find a small, unusually shaped stone near a quartz outcropping. I pick it up and clean it off, seeing the telltale shimmer of rare earth mineralization. It's a beautiful reminder of the secret I kept and the truth I revealed. I think about how close we came to losing it all. If I hadn't been the unreliable one, if I hadn't gone off to study geology, this hill would be a hole in the ground right now. I realize that sometimes the greatest act of responsibility is to be the one who doesn't fit in. I tuck the stone into my pocket and walk back toward the farmhouse where I can see the smoke rising from the chimney. The 800 acres are quiet, peaceful, and protected. My parents pass away peacefully within a year of each other, leaving the surface rights to Sarah just as they always planned. But because of the trust I built, she isn't overwhelmed by taxes or maintenance. She runs a successful organic farm and an educational center for young farmers. I remain the owner of the mineral rights, the silent guardian of the valley. We meet every Sunday for dinner at the old oak table, keeping the tradition alive. We talk about the weather, the crops, and the community. We don't talk about the billions of dollars beneath our feet anymore. It's just a fact of life, a foundation that we built our new world upon. Sarah has become my closest confidant, and I realize that the betrayal of the inheritance was actually the best thing that ever happened to our relationship. It forced us to see each other as individuals, not just archetypes. I'm sitting on the porch again, just like I was that evening years ago. The sun is setting and the valley is bathed in gold. I think about Thorne and Global Crest and all the people who only see the world as something to be used and discarded. I realize that the mineral rights I bought weren't just about the rocks, they were about the right to say no to destruction. I am the owner of the legacy, the brain behind the empire, and the son who was never a failure. I look out at the 800 acres and for the first time I don't see any long shadows. I only see the light. I've turned my family's responsible sister and failure brother into a team that actually saved the world, or at least our corner of it. I am Leo Miller and I know exactly what I am standing on. The wind picks up, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. I close my eyes and breathe it in, feeling the ancient, steady presence of the minerals deep below. They've been there for millions of years, and because of my unreliable obsession with rocks, they'll be there for a lot longer. I realize that the true mineral rights weren't a deed or a contract, they were the courage to look deeper than anyone else. I stand up and walk inside the house, ready for another Sunday dinner with my sister. The lights are on, the table is set, and the Miller name is exactly where it belongs. My parents might have left the responsible sister the estate, but I was the one who made sure there was an estate to leave. I smile as I close the door, the 800 acres safe behind me from the surface to the core of the world.